From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where I will try to get through this monologue without being shot dead by an Antifa sniper. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Glad to have you with us tonight. And once more, we open with a special programming advisory. The golden age of Western civilization news roundup will again be preempted this week so that we can bring you another edition of the worst people in the whole wide world weekly update. And if I'm being honest, you might just be stuck with the WPWWWU permanently from here on out because, let's be honest, I enjoy writing it more than the news roundup, and it seems to get more views on Monday. And also, I just think it's fun saying WPWWWU. And with that advisory having been issued, we begin this week's update in exactly the same place where we ended last week's update, with the governor of California, a vile, loathsome, diabolical creature and part-time podcaster by the name of Gavin Christopher Newsom. When last we left Mr. Newsom, he was issuing not very thinly veiled terrorist threats toward the Homeland Security Secretary, and he really hasn't stopped issuing veiled terrorist threats in the intervening 7 days since. The man seems to really quite enjoy issuing veiled terrorist threats, even as numerous left-wing terror attacks continue to rock the country on a weekly basis, hell, almost a daily basis now. In fact, Governor Newsom seems to spend so much of his time issuing terrorist threats and then furiously denying that his terrorist threats actually were terrorist threats that one wonders where he finds the time to perform his duties as governor in between fomenting left-wing political violence and hosting his dumb vanity project podcast, the point of which was supposed to be to position himself as a pragmatic centrist and bolster his chances of becoming president, so he would appear to be sort of operating at cross purposes with himself right now. I mean, I ain't no fancy political consultant, but if you go record your little podcast and cosplay as a Mr. Centrist Unifier type of guy, and then afterward you blast out a bunch of tweets about how various people in the Trump administration are authoritarian fascists who should probably be killed as soon as possible, I feel like the messages you're sending out are, shall we say, slightly mixed. But let's not pretend this maniac doesn't know exactly what the hell he's doing. We know enough about Mr. Newsom and his impeccable credentials as a San Francisco socialist to know the pragmatic centrist unifier song and dance he does on the stupid podcast is nothing but pure cynical cosplay. We know the terrorist threats that are coming hot and heavy out of his press office are more illustrative of what he really thinks. We know that when he issued that veiled threat to Secretary Noem late last week, we knew he was trafficking in the exact same sort of rhetoric that got Charlie Kirk murdered. And now this week, by all appearances, he wants Stephen Miller to be murdered next. Stephen Miller, who of course is the deputy White House chief of staff and also happens to be Jewish. How did Newsom's press office refer to Stephen Miller this week? First, they referred to him as a member of the SS, the organization that perpetrated the Holocaust, and then they referred to him as a fascist, which is a very classy thing to say about a Jewish man, to smear him as a member of the same criminal organization that gassed the members of his religion by the millions in an industrialized effort to eradicate Judaism from planet Earth for all time. It's a very strong look, Gavin Newsom, very strong indeed. It really bolsters your credentials as a pragmatic centrist unifier who wants to live in a tolerant, pluralistic society. But here's an idea. Maybe don't have your press office blast out tweets that would be upvoted by Heinrich Himmler and Reinhard Heydrich and Adolf Eichmann if they had Twitter accounts. Actually, no. Maybe they wouldn't upvote it. They would like it that you are calling for Jews to be exterminated, but they probably would also be deeply offended at you characterizing those same Jews as members of the Schutzstaffel. But who knows? Maybe you're so busy fantasizing about Trump administration officials being killed, you didn't give much of a thought to any type of intellectual consistency. And again, where does this guy actually find the time to do governor things? Does he even do governor things? I can't say. And I live in his state, for Christ's sake. It doesn't appear as though he does, though. Not a single thing has come out of his press office in the last 2 weeks, except for terrorist threats against members of the Trump administration. And I, for one, am old enough to remember a former, simpler time when a governor's press office would issue statements like, "Hey, these are the pieces of legislation that I signed this week," or, "Hey, I just issued such and such proclamation honoring this person or this event," but not anymore, not in California. Our governor's press office is rather like listening to Robert De Niro's Al Capone in The Untouchables. "I want this pretty boy Stephen Miller dead. I want his wife dead. I want his kids dead. I want his dog dead. I want his house burned to the fucking ground." And then he beats some guy to death with a baseball bat for chuckling at him too much. But There are so many worst people in the whole wide world of awfulness in the world's ocean, and alas, the boat of this monologue is so very small. But I want to give a special mention to the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, a man whose name is, I believe, Ali Muhammad Jihad, who informed his city's non-Muslim residents this week that he doesn't really give two squirts of piss about them or their concerns, that they are no longer welcome in the city in which they and their forebears have been living and paying taxes for numerous generations, that they should get the fuck out just as soon as they possibly can, and that when they do, he and the city's Muslim ruling class are going to throw a parade just as soon as they are gone. The filthy kafir infidels, concerned citizens who came to the city council meeting this week were alarmed by a couple of recent developments. Number one, the recent renaming of one of Dearborn's major thoroughfares after a Muslim imam by the name of Mahmoud Akbar Jihad Mahmoud Jihad Muhammad, whose written works are overflowing with loving, tolerant expressions of religious pluralism like, fight the infidels with stones, fight them with knives, fight them with bullets, fight them with planes. And if that doesn't work, fight them with the butt ends of broken beer bottles, because that's all we've bloody well got. That last bit being a loving nod to the great Islamic warlord Winstoni Muhammad Jihad al-Churchilli, which the filthy concerned citizens, took as the city government endorsing violent terrorist rhetoric, to which Mayor Jihad Muhammad Jihad replied, nope, nothing violent about that quote, nothing at all. You are clearly just a bunch of dastardly homophobes. The other citizen complaint was, we keep getting woken up at 5 o'clock in the morning because the local mosques are blasting out their calls to prayer on external loudspeakers. And in point of fact, the local noise ordinance explicitly prohibits the use of external loudspeakers between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., which caused Mayor Jihad Muhammad Jihad to exclaim, stop being such a bigoted racist bigot, or I will order Police Chief Khalil Jihad Ahmed Muhammad Jihad al-Dearborni to arrest you immediately and sell you to the fucking Barbary pirates, inshallah. And speaking of once great American cities where Americans no longer have the right to live in peace, let's put the city government of Portland, Oregon, not just the pussy douchebag mayor of Portland, Oregon, but everybody in the city government on this week's worst people list, because nobody has earned it more than they have. We could also arguably add the state government of Oregon to the list if we felt like casting the net more broadly, because none of these people seem in the least bit bothered that, as a practical matter, fucking Antifa has been the de facto city government of Portland for upwards of half a decade now. You all remember the George Floyd Summer of Love in 2020, when the riots went on longer in Portland than they did anywhere else. They actually had a stretch of, which I believe was a world record, over 100 nights in a row in which the Portland PD officially declared a riot, which is kind of a meaningless distinction anyway, because the Portland PD kind of bends over backward to never interfere with whatever Antifa wants to do. Antifa in Portland is effectively a law unto itself. To all intents and purposes, Portland is the functional equivalent of a dusty Mexican border town where the local drug cartel wields all of the real power. And the ostensible city government is just sort of a neutered figurehead that only exists to kind of keep up appearances. You don't need to take this reporter's word for any of this. The videos are all over YouTube. You may have seen some of them before. It's not unusual in certain areas of Portland for pedestrians innocently walking down a public sidewalk to be accosted by black-clad Antifa shitbags and be challenged to produce their ID in order to prove that they are not feds or news reporters, as if it is any of Antifa's goddamn business whether you are a fed or a news reporter. And when you object to the Antifa shitbags who just accosted you, when you refuse to comply with their demands because this is supposed to be America, and I am supposed to be able to use a public sidewalk without being stopped and accosted and harassed by terrorists in black pajamas, when they take umbrage at your insolence and your noncompliance and beat you within an inch of your life and you are left lying in a pool of your own blood, good luck getting the Portland PD to take a report on the incident, much less to arrest anybody, much less prosecute them. And even if they get a wild hair up their ass one day and they do arrest your attacker, well, you know how this song and dance goes. Some woke idiot judge will turn them loose without bail because cash bail is evil and bad, don't you know? And even if charges do happen to be filed, they will be quietly dropped within a matter of weeks because all of the city and state government officials in Portland live in fear of doing anything that might piss off their real masters, the Antifa shitbags. There are a couple of federal immigration detention centers in the city of Portland, and you know pretty much how this story goes. They have been under siege on a nightly basis ever since Trump reassumed the presidency back in January. Every night, all night, they are screaming and yelling and blasting megaphones and setting off explosives, harassing and menacing every employee who enters or leaves the building. And when they are feeling really frisky, they do that same fun trick that they first perfected at the Portland Federal Courthouse back during the Summer of Love when they tried to glue all of the doors shut and then burn down the building with everyone inside. The Portland PD, well, don't bother calling them. They won't even send a squad car to do a drive-by because, after all, they work for the terrorists. The people in the apartment buildings across the street who are trying to innocently get a good night's sleep so they can go to work in the morning, and whose kids are innocently trying to get a good night's sleep so they can go to school in the morning, who are being kept awake all night, every night by this never-ending riot, well, that's just too fucking bad for them. Antifa is the ruling authority in the city of Portland, and anybody who doesn't like it should just go ahead and move the fuck away. But President Trump has decided that he is just about done tolerating this industrialized anarchy and lawlessness, as well he should be. Because Americans are supposed to have certain unalienable rights. And among these rights are the right to use public roadways and public sidewalks without being harassed and accosted by assholes in black pajamas. The right to be able to sleep at night. The right to expect that you are a victim of assault and battery. Your attacker will be duly arrested and prosecuted and punished for his crime. And if the local government and the state government have taken the decision to abdicate their responsibility to protect these rights and to do any of the things that governments are traditionally supposed to do, then the president and the federal government don't really have any choice but to step in and do something about it. Criminals do not have the right to conduct reigns of terror in American cities. To borrow a favorite pet phrase of the left, that is not who we are. I hope Trump sends in so many troops, it makes everybody's head spin. I hope these people are dealt with, and they're dealt with the utmost ruthlessness. I want every single one of these assholes rounded up, charged with every federal crime they can possibly be charged with, and imprisoned for the maximum possible length of time that they can be imprisoned. Every Antifa shitbag is now a member of an officially proscribed domestic terrorist group, and that's exactly how they should be dealt with. The good people of this country are well and truly done with this nonsense, way past done. In fact, the violent leftist tyranny has to be crushed with extreme prejudice wherever it exists. It has to be stamped out. These people need to be made an example of. If your social media history is full of Antifa shit, if there is a digital record of you participating in Antifa terrorism, then you should expect to die in a federal prison. That is what the decent, law-abiding citizens of this country are entitled to expect. And it is the fervent hope of this reporter that President Trump fulfills that expectation and fulfills it good and hard. Not just in Portland either, but in every city where the local authorities have abdicated their duties. If the Democrats and the fake news media cry and moan about it and call it an authoritarian invasion, their words mean absolutely nothing to me. You are either on the side of civilization or you are not. You have to pick one. I am done. That is all I've got. This has been the WPWWWU. I now transmit you into the firm but loving embrace of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the one and only Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.